Well, seeing as it's 6 o'clock, I'm going to start the webinar. Thank you all for joining us tonight and welcome to the first in our two-part fall webinar series on organic agriculture. Tonight, we'll learn about on-farm research, but next week, we have another webinar where we will also learn about resources from the Organic Farming Research Foundation and the National Center for Appropriate Technology. And we will hear from a panel of local organic farmers who will share their insights about the certification process and their experiences. I want to start by acknowledging that this program is supported through the United States Department of Agriculture's Transition to Organic Partnership Program, TOPP. TOPP is a program of the USDA Organic Transition Initiative and is administered by the USDA Agricultural Marketing Service National Organic Program. And you can learn more at ocia.org/plains-topp or scan the QR code. So tonight's webinar is titled Navigating Organic Innovation, Research Insights, Collaboration Steps, and Resources. So tonight we'll be bridging the gap between cutting-edge organic research and your farm's practical success. Organic research is essential to organic success. We conduct research to find new ways to control weeds and pests within an organic system, to develop new varieties, increase yields, improve soil health, and much more. So tonight, we're going to hear from Glenn Philbrick of Hiddendale Farm, who has conducted on-farm research. We will hear from Kasim Khan from NDSU's Research Extension Center at Carrington, and Jeff Gale from North Dakota SARE. Greta Gramig also conducts organic research at NDSU, but unfortunately, due to personal circumstances, Greta was unable to join us tonight. Tonight, you'll learn about recent organic research conducted in North Dakota, how to start your own organic research project, or collaborate on existing on-farm trials. Our speakers will help you understand key considerations and practical steps for success in undertaking on-farm research, and we will share grant opportunities and key resources to support farmer-led research. So first, tonight, we have Glenn Philbrick. Glenn is a fifth-generation farmer at Hiddendale Farm, a 700-acre homestead near Turtle Lake. The farm includes dairy and beef cattle, small grains, organic vegetables, and native grassland flowers. He prioritizes soil cover, avoids monoculture, and incorporates cover crops. In 2016, he certified a portion of his cropland as organic. Glenn has participated in numerous grant-funded research projects and serves as a contract producer for certified organic vegetable seeds. Currently, he is transitioning to growing native grassland flower seeds. So welcome, Glenn.
Good evening. How is everybody?
Doing good.
Can everyone hear me okay? All right.
Yes, we do.
Awesome. Where do you want me to start?
Well, would you please tell us about some of the, tell us about your on-farm research.
Okay. So I've engaged in on-farm research for a long time for a few reasons, and one is because I was curious. I wanted to find new ways to deal with problems or challenges, and sometimes some things are really big problems, and some things are more challenges, and sometimes it's just pure curiosity. Going back to when I was a kid, I would like to try. I at least used to try growing something different that usually wasn't grown just because. It was usually a vegetable or a flower. And then a friend of mine got me some native grassland seed, one stiff sunflower and one winter fat, which were probably more common here pre-colonization. And now are more rare at least in North Dakota, but there's some out there. And he wanted me to try just growing it. And so it was a dry year. And so I tried it, and I had zero germination for stiff sunflower. I thought, okay, the winter fat I had success with. And the next year, the stiff sunflower came up. Luckily, I hadn't tilled that up yet. So anyway, um, that's some of my first experiments with that. It was just more curiosity. And then fast forward a few years, a friend fed me quinoa for the first time, and I thought, well, I like this. I wonder if we can grow it. So I ordered a small packet, and I put it in a row in my mom's garden. And she tilled. I caught her in the act of tilling it under. Um, she said, "Well, that's a weed." I'm like, "No, it's not. That is the crop that looked identical to lamb's quarters because they're in the same family." So I did manage to save half of it. It wasn't tilled, and it grew. And I hand harvested the seed from it, and then. Uh, a former now retired extension agent, Irene Graves, had encouraged me to apply for SARE, and I did, and I got my first SARE grant in 20, let me see, we applied in 2014. So it was 2 years, 2014, 15. And so I experimentally grew quinoa and amaranth, both gluten-free crops, to see, it was like proof of concept. Could we grow it? Plus, what equipment do you need to plant it? What do you need to harvest it? And other challenges we had. And so that research is all public, and I did successfully grow it and successfully harvest it. We lack one piece of equipment in this state, and that's a scarification machine. And quinoa has a coating that's invisible to the eye called saponin, and it is very, very bitter. If that is not removed, it makes quinoa inedible. Insects don't eat that. Saponin is a natural insecticide. So that was a barrier I identified to market, was that. But fast forward 10 years from my research, there are now producers in North Dakota who have contracts for growing quinoa. And a couple of them called me, they cite my research. And so that led to variety trials because of the networks I have, which gave me a stipend to experiment with carrots and onions and tomatoes and peppers. And I just like growing new things, and gave them the data of like, you know what, this variety didn't pan out very well, and this was wonderful. And because of those variety trials, I still grow one main lettuce, outrageous. To me, that is the best flavored lettuce I'd ever grown. And out of that trial, I grow Sedona onions, which to me is the best flavor. Well, I've never been an onion I didn't like, but it was the longest storing onion I've ever had and biggest onions I've ever had. So that's what I consistently grow every year, is that variety, thanks to research. And after certification, I wanted to experiment with specialty crop seed production. And so I went to Organic Seed Alliance. This is a gathering in Portland, Oregon, not actually Corvallis, Oregon, where OSU is. And this is the gathering of organic seed plant breeders, culinary experts, some funders, seed companies. And so I got my first seed contracts out of there. And I guess the rest is history. And something some of the seed companies want to know is my experience with growing it, because if it tastes awful, they want to know that. If there's any unique challenges, they want to know that. Another thing is, what if it's finicky for seed production? And that did happen with a beet I grew. And I was added to the producer list who said, this one is really hard to produce seed for, but they need to know that. So hence, that particular beet comes with a premium. Something out of necessity, another research project was due to your first year of drought, you don't have the grasshoppers. Year 2 or 3 is when they appear. Mother Nature takes grasshoppers out when there is substantial precipitation after they hatch. Not before, but after. And we didn't get that in 2021 or 22. And so they decimated a lot of my crops. But in 2022, which was a normal precipitation year, I noted it's like, they're in my wheat. They're in it, but they don't eat it. So I got a refractometer and special pliers to squeeze out the juice, and I tested Brix. Brix is 15% in my wheat, which is organic. My renter's wheat, which is not organic, was 15%. And hoppers danced around. Crossed over soybeans that tested 10% Brix. Grasshoppers loved them. So that led to a second SARE grant to research how to increase Brix levels, because grasshoppers and other certain insect pests don't like high sugar levels. And so I grew every variety every species that they ate of mine that they destroyed. And then I tested different ways to amend the soil to increase Brix. And that was in my other studies. So that was one of necessity. And so something good came out of something bad. So when you don't have pests, it's like maybe we don't focus on it as much. But a good thing about bricks is that it usually leads to increased flavor. The grape growers of California are probably the best at this. They're out checking that because that's really a really important piece of data, and it affects the flavor of the wine. Questions so far? No? Okay. Um, so so I kind of accidentally got into research, but part of it is I'm curious and I like to experiment and do something different every year. Um, and so I like to observe what do I see in my pastures and fields and with growing crops. And I always take this with a grain of salt that, well, I may grow the same variety year after year, and I may be saving the seed. So what makes my spaghetti squash grow to twice the length in year two than year one? That's a question I ask. Same seed packet. I think it was a fluke. Actually, they were too big for some consumers. So it's just something to note in observation is a good thing. Something that I got my neighbor to experiment with because I knew I needed to do soil tests. And I emphasize if you're growing something, do a soil test. That's very important because you can see where you're at, but also consider, well, what nutrients may affect another nutrient's uptake in a plant. So pH can affect that. And I have a couple that are a little higher pH. My area is higher in pH to begin with. So I applied elemental sulfur, but I didn't need the whole ton. And my neighbor was discussing things, and I did get a little tester to take over there, and we thought, well, he has a high salinity area that he used to farm when he cultivated. The renter did only no-till, and then the renter had now quit farming that area. He says, I can't grow anything on it. So I think it's like 5 acres, might be a little more. And the neighbor said, let's experiment. Let's put elemental sulfur on that area. So we did. And which he'd been cutting for hay. There are white areas, a lot of foxtail barley, which is undesirable for cattle. And so in fall 2024, September, October, I applied it to his field with his spreader. And 2025, he had more than double the hay production on that ground and less foxtail barley. So this is a positive result. It was all experimentation. But we're also, I just used one little tester for pH in there and thought, well, it is kind of high. So some things have come out of necessity and look at, well, how can we do some things different? That's what kind of got me into research and also my network. I wish Greta was on tonight. I've worked with Greta before. My farm was a site for a research study. I wasn't the writer of that proposal. I'm more of a research participant. But it's fun to have an army of grad students in your field doing work. I think that's just cool, even though it wasn't things I wanted them to do. It's what they had to do for the project, but that was fun. So
So Glenn,
yes.
Many of the people attending tonight might be interested in doing their own on-farm research trials. How might they get started?
I guess identify a problem or identify an opportunity. So quinoa was an opportunity. Grasshoppers was a problem. And then we work from there. And then whether you identify the problem or opportunity, then under that, consider what do you want to learn and what goals do you have. So for example, in my grasshopper study, I had 2 goals. One was raise Brix levels in all these different crops that I'm growing. Borage, sweet corn, popcorn, potatoes, onions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Another one is stop the grasshoppers. So I had a couple goals. And then I took steps to try and meet those goals, and I had them all on paper. That's the steps you take. Also consider what your capabilities are. It's easier to start small. I think I bit off a little more than I could chew with the amount of quinoa I planted for my first grant. I mean, I got it done, but I could have got the same results on a smaller piece of ground and saved myself some work. So that's something to consider. So I guess with identifying problems or opportunities, every one of us has a different operation. We have different priorities. I guess when you identify, I would pick your top two and go from there and try weighing your options. Like, which could I focus on? Also, what do you have time and resources to work with as well? That's something to consider. My bricks testing, that took a lot of time. And plus I'm applying soil amendments too. This wasn't like go through the field once and you're done. This dealt with a lot of flowers and vegetables, especially crops. I mean, the oats and alfalfa was probably the easier ones to work with. So you have to consider what is your time commitment to this as well. Some things take more time than others. If I had had the correct cleaning equipment, cleaning my quinoa and amaranth would have been a little easier. Granted, I got better with practice too.
What recommendation for farmers who want to get started with on-farm research do you have for finding collaborators or, organizations to work with?
So I do suggest networking. I can't emphasize that enough because then it gets you into people who are like-minded when it comes to research. So you could start with your local extension agent, who may be able to point you in the direction to another NDSU research center that is maybe focused on what you're doing, and you could talk to some folks there. Also, we have the Ag University, NDSU. There may be some faculty there who are researching things or probably are interested in what you're doing. Also, networks like Marbleseed, that is focused on organic, but conventional people are welcome as well. I mean, a lot of things that are practiced there and taught are applied in the conventional world as well. Organic Research Farming Foundation has a lot of resources in their site if you're looking at that route. And so I say for sources, if you're going to play online and look for sources, USDA SARE, your respective state's Ag University, because they have a lot of research and that's all public. Organic Research Farming Foundation, if you're seed specific, Organic Seed Alliance, pest specific, there I'd reach out to NDSU if that's the route you're going down. And just to broaden your horizon, there are some differences in organic and conventional world, and I think it's wise to talk to both. And part of it is just maybe the perspective too. It's like you can meet someone that's organic or conventional, and you may ask them something, and it's like, well, we never really looked at that, and that comes from both sides. And I'm not trying to by no means pin one against the other at all. It's more of a way to collaborate and see if they have experience with anything like that. So the networks is key, because maybe they could point you into a study that's already been done about something that could be helpful. If you're looking at an opportunity such as growing a new crop, SARE is probably the place to start. If you find nothing there for your region, so for example, you're going to find crops grown under USDA SARE that we can't grow here, but there's some that you're going to wonder about. And then find where they are growing it and see, well, what would be the challenges in growing in our area? Is our soil like not going to work? I love it. We could grow coffee here, but I can dream, right? Yeah, that one's not going to happen. So, but see if you can determine at least, well, is there anything in the environment that would really just stop it from growing? I did try what's the herb, saffron. I did try growing that. And actually a faculty member from NDSU was surprised it didn't grow, but was my corm bad? I don't know. CORM. It didn't germinate, period. And he felt, given our latitude, longitude, and climate, that it would. I'm willing to try it again. It's another experiment I try it. So I guess focus on whether it be a problem or opportunity, and then start putting down on paper what your priorities are, then doing some research. So places to network. Marbleseed has been really good for me. NPSS meets in Aberdeen. Marble Seed is a lot bigger. There's things there. When the research sites in North Dakota, Carrington, Dickinson, Hettinger, et cetera, have their field days, I do encourage you to go to them because you can maybe meet some individuals there who are experimenting or see what they are experimenting with at those research stations. And again, the research that I've engaged in has really benefited me personally and financially and helped me be a better farmer. Plus, it's just a little more interesting. It's like, well, any of us could grow wheat or corn. I'm pretty sure of that. It's like, let's have fun growing something else.
Glenn, you shared your research report with me. Maybe I could share my screen and
Sure.
we can look up your research report to one, show people how to use that SARE database to look
Sure.
up reports.
I also have it open on mine if you want, if I'm able to share my screen.
You are able to, and go ahead
Okay.
and share your screen.
Will do. Let me get to the right one. Okay, come on, Zoom like me. Let me open it. I'm 2 clicks away.
And actually, Jeff, were you going to show people how to search the SARE research report database in your presentation?
No, I wasn't going to do that.
Okay. Glenn, why don't you go back a level and use this as an opportunity to also show people the whole database?
Okay. Glenn, this window I have open is my that is my report. But let me go back to, I'm going to open a new window here. And so I'm going to type in USDA SARE, not SARE login because you have to have a login for that, but SARE.org. And then we go to, I'm going to move my window around here. I'm going to search and I'm going to look up an opportunity. Buckwheat. Not a lot grown in the session verification. I never got this one before. Okay. All right. I got 50 results. And so this is all SARE sites. I could narrow it down by region. I could do that, but then it gives us all of these different studies. These projects have been done, such as cover crops, buckwheat cover crop, new buckwheat varieties, cover crops for pest management, weed control. So there's a lot of
up to the top. I also want to show them the project report database. So click on projects.
Oh, sure.
And click search projects.
Okay.
So here's where you can find the reports for anyone who's ever done received a SARE grant for research. And you could also just search within North Dakota if you want to see research that's been done close to you, or search within the whole of the North Central region.
So like another one, there's no more research, and I'm in this research right now. Field pea is a cover crop. Lots there. But I'm testing new field pea varieties right now. We'll see if it survives the winter. My second year of doing that. Last year, with virtually no cover, these varieties popped back up, which is kind of cool. So we can see there's a lot here for just peas. Okay, I had to go for broke.
Let's take a look at your your project report.
Okay. Not a lot for saffron. Okay. All right. My report is right here. So this is my most recent one. Do note on the right side, it notes grant recipient, Hindale Farm SB. I'm in the North Central region. I'm listed the coordinator, the amount I got, and the project type, farmer rancher. There's different project types within SARE, and I think Jeff could probably do a better job of explaining that than me. And so we look here. I have a video that was recorded to regarding this, and there's benefits and impacts. I noted benefits include economic sustainability, environmental sustainability, because we're dealing with soil health and economic sustainability. We're stopping a pest from taking our crops out. That's economic sustainability. Production efficiency. Um, we want to be better producers and be better producers with the resources we got. And social sustainability. Having your crops not taken out by an act of God is definitely a better socially sustainable activities. And here I'm able to edit from here, but this is my summary that you can read here. What I noted, and this is what got me in motion to write the proposal for this study. And research I'd found is basically 12% is the magic number that a lot of insect pests, not bees, because bees are pollinators, but the pests that eat your plants, that's like the magic number. They're like, you know what? This ain't agreeing with me. It's making my stomach sick. I'm gonna quit eating this. That I incorporated into there. You note all the different crops I was experimenting with, uh, and the objectives. You don't have to have as many objectives as I do. You could have more, you could have less. It all depends. And let me find I don't want the video. I wanted I want to find my spreadsheet. That's what I spent. I need the final, there it is. That's what I wanted. I'm going to open this. Nope. Okay. Is my spreadsheet showing up?
It is not.
Okay, let me do this. I got to switch screens. This is to me some of the most important part of my research project here, which is what was the crop? What was my soil amendment? And all these percentages was the bricks readings. As you see, every cell there, that is more than one reading because I combined them and averaged them together. So this is the work I did through for this project, but now the data is public. What were my bricks readings for said crops, given the different treatments that were available, soil amendments, calcium, amino acid, potassium. When I say potassium, it's the nitrogen versus potassium ratio or humic acid, and then your control variable is the no treatment. So anyway, that's my basic research. And I also noted that if any of these amendments change flavor, I noted that as well, because if you're growing for flavor, now I'll go on a limb. To me, onions are either mild or strong, or really strong. And I didn't notice a change in that. But I do see that change year to year, and I cannot pinpoint on why that is. But on lettuce, these amendments affected the flavor, and that I felt was really important noting. So to me, this is not complicated. It was time consuming, but not overly complicated. But I'm also a spreadsheet geek, and I like playing with these scientific tools out in the field too. So if any of you have met or know of Gene Govan, he's a well-known rancher in North Dakota, and he's been engaged in cell grazing for over 40 years. And his data is amazing. He has 5 times the number of cattle in the same ground as 40 years ago, thanks to rotational grazing. And so he's carrying a refractometer around too. Questions? No? Let's see, I'll stop sharing that. I'm trying to think of what else I should share.
Well, we have some questions prepared. Maybe they'll help jog questions from others.
Okay.
It was pretty clear that on-farm research entails an additional time commitment, at least your
Yes.
research. How would you recommend farmers manage the added time and labor commitment that comes with conducting detailed on-farm research?
So I don't know if you should do what I did. I'm just going to say no rest for the wicked. uh, there's some late nights for me working in the office with the data, and granted, I'm outside usually till sundown anyway. So I guess, I mean, if you currently have zero time to add another project, then maybe you shouldn't go about it. But then, um, I mean, consider what you do have time for. So basically, it's the efficient use of resources. You know, do what you can. If you know I could do this little experiment, great. And like for my neighbor, he wanted that experiment done on that ground. And so we did it. And it's like, he's retired, was, I guess, would be considered conventional, but my research has motivated him to he looks at farming way different because of my research. And then, so even his old age, he's willing to take on a little research project for me just because it interests him too. So I guess my advice is look at the time you do have it in the times of the year, because some parts of the season are more busy than others. So for my project I showed you, um, they don't all mature at the same time, and you're not taking the readings in the first month. You're waiting a little bit for them to get halfway grown, but not necessarily producing the flowers or the vegetables or the grain yet. So that research was spread out over the season. But when things were ripe, I had to hit everything and do this. That was a little more time consuming. And I realized, okay, I got to bite the bullet, stay up late and do that, and take bricks readings till sundown. So I realize we're farmers, we're busy. I guess evaluate your time schedule and go from there. That would be my advice.
Are there any other questions from the audience?
And I apologize, my voice is raspy. It's like I also teach, and it's like, well, at the end of the day, my voice is about gone. So anyway.
So you said research has benefited you financially.
Yes.
Can you share, besides SARE, what are some other funding sources for on-farm research?
I've gotten stipends through, or will be getting stipends through Organic Seed Alliance for research. Then I worked with, there's a project that was multi-state through NDSU that I worked with, and I have a stipend for that. There was some grant written through MPSAS, and I was one of the people who trialed the varieties. I've also taken on some pro bono, but I did that because it leads to other research. And so that's been where it's benefited me financially. I felt the stipends were worth my time. I've done some like these pea variety trials and a beet variety trial. I did pro bono for the experiment, and plus I would get the beets, and they appreciate the data. And so I want to maintain my network. And it's like, well, down the road we may be helping each other out, and that's why I do that. But I realize that what I'm experimenting with could be a benefit to my farm and my area too. Other venues besides SARE, Organic Research Farming Foundation may benefit you. There may be other benefits, other opportunities in other states. I also keep my eye out for foundation money. So in North Dakota, Fargo Public Library has that database, which isn't cheap. And you can find the foundations that fund a variety of things. And some of them you can't apply to. They're looking for someone to fund, which means you have to get the name out there. But it did give me a visit there, did give me access to other entities that might fund my research that I'm interested in. So I have a collection of all these organizations, and in December here, I'm going through that and see like, okay, is what I want to do going to fit within their mission? And if so, I'm reaching out to them and then see if I can get funding for a project I want to do. So private money is an option, though. I mean, I have a relationship with one foundation in Minneapolis. It's for a non-ag thing, but the relationship with foundations, I think, is really important. And it's like Bush Foundation does amazing work in North South Dakota, Minnesota, and South Dakota. They're not ag focused, but there are a few things that are community based that could be. And so, from a marketing standpoint, you're marketing food. they might have something to help you. So the research doesn't always have to be growing something. It could be, your research could be testing a market too, or how to improve a market. So don't limit yourself to growing something.
Glenn, I have two questions. One question is, I'm sorry, was it quinoa or was it amaranth that you did?
Both.
Both. Um, how many hours did you spend on that project? I mean, you're getting grant money, but did it take 200 hours or did it take
I didn't track that, but I can tell you, okay, here's what I would have different. I grew it as a row crop. In hindsight, if I could do it over, I wouldn't have did that. But because I grew it as a row crop, and I had to retrofit a two row planter that my dad made homemade. That people who do field plots envy that type of planter because it's ideal for wildlife plots. But we had to it took me 5 hours to cultivate that field with a two row cultivator. So I think planting went quicker. So I had between 4 and 6 hours in planting. Every time I cultivated was minimum 5 hours. The combining we got done in 3 hours. We spent more time trying to set the sieves than anything and the air. So I'm not sure my total number of hours on that. I think I had more hours into the brick study than the quinoa study. But if I could do it over today, I would have planted it with a regular drill. I think I could have obtained similar results. That would have went quicker and I wouldn't have been cultivating it. So I guess I would advise, and this again, a mistake I made. I remember the hours for cultivating and seeding and combining.
I was just thinking, as you prepare a grant, you need to estimate how
Yeah,
much time you're going to spend so you can be paid for your labor.
yeah.
And yeah,
And so that's something when I wrote the quinoa one, I didn't consider that. I just
hmm
like I want to try this. Um, when I did my variety trial for like peas, oh, I have an hour in that.
hmm
Not ain't bad. And I'm covering like a 20-foot by 200-foot plot.
hmm
That's because I'm not harvesting either. I'm just planting and go out and take some photos and guesstimate your data. That would be a good idea. And sometimes you're going into this blind because you don't
hmm
know. What I don't have track of is the hours in preparing equipment. I'm not referring to cleaning equipment. I had to make my own seed plates to plant quinoa and
hmm
amaranth. So you get a blank seed plate and you got to drill them all. Um, then the cleaning part, I did track cleaning my seed.
hmm
That took quite a while. There's a lot of experimentation in that. Now with my seed production, I am tracking labor. Um,
Sure.
I find
And
that
how much time would it usually take you to prepare a grant proposal? And how much time would it usually take you to report, to complete the reporting process?
so for my brick study, for example, there was a data collection. The data collection took me way longer than planting anything. That's cultivating and tilling. The the data collection took a long time for that. So once I got in the office, once I had everything on that clipboard, and I went into my office, I think I got the spreadsheet done in about 2 hours. But I'm good at that. But the data collection out in the field, that was a many, many hours for that. For the quinoa grant, the report there didn't take so long because it's like plant dates, seeding rates, harvest date. I could get a way up of production. That went pretty well. And then the major part of the report were what went well, what happened because of what we didn't know what was going to happen with some things. That was an experiment. Um, and so that report actually went quicker. So how long did it take me to write them? I never tracked that, but again, the more complicated your study, the more longer it will take. Often the larger the pot of money, the longer it will take. So being outside of farming, I'm also faculty at Sitting Bull College at Standing Rock, and there's grants there I manage. And the I won for a student group. That took me a fair amount. That took me first time around. I think we had 6 hours in the writing that one. First time around. Second time around is like they asked, do you want to be funded again? And that was a really simple form to fill out. So it depends on who is your funder. Every funder, whether it's the government, a government agency, a foundation, they're all different. I was the writer for a grant for a for-profit entity, but was for a Bush Foundation. That was the most difficult grant I wrote. We didn't get it. I stared at their charts probably an hour before I typed the key. I was trying to wrap my head around it. So it depends on, there are so many variables within that. You're at the mercy of the funder. They have their priorities, and you also need to fit within their priorities. So if you're looking for funding, make sure that generally what you want to do would fit with the priorities. Then if not, take a step back and ask, is there a way I could, or is this a more challenging project to find funding for? And there's nothing wrong with, take out a 10 by 10 plot and experiment. If you're going to do some growing, marketing research could be a little more tricky. But an opportunity I do have for you, if you are going down that route to see that, okay, I recognize this market opportunity, ag-related, in North Dakota or Minnesota. USDA rural development could be an option. USDA rural development funds feasibility studies. And it's like, who better to determine if a market is feasible than the experts? Did that help? I hope. I keep encouraging my students, like, you have business aspirations, do look at USDA rural development. To me, that is an underutilized resource. And this is just my experience. USDA has always been wonderful to work with. I have always enjoyed my interactions. They've been, whatever the office is, they have been wonderful to me. And I'm not just working with SARE. I've worked with other, different enterprises. It's been a really, really good experience.
Well, thank you, Glenn. We have Kasim up next. And Glenn, I assume, will you be around for the rest of the webinar if there are other questions later?
Sure.
Okay. So Kasim Khan is here. Kasim is the organic researcher at the NDSU Research Extension Center at Carrington. And he is going to be talking about his organic research at Carrington and opportunities for collaboration with farmers. So welcome, Kasim.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Good to be here. So enjoy the talk from Glenn. It was pretty interesting talk. So thanks for that. I will share my presentation that I have. So let's see. Okay. So all right. I think you can see my slide.
Yes.
Okay, let me see. Okay, I think I'm going to move this right here. Okay, so I am the organic cropping system agronomist at the Carrington Research Extension Center. And so I'll be talking about the organic research at Carrington Ag Research Center. So just a brief introduction that I joined the organic program last year. So I just, last September I came in, late September. So I just completed my first field season here. And so I will be presenting some of the trials that we did. So And before that, I spent about 22 years in Montana State University working on cropping systems, mainly in dry land and a wheat fallow system. And you all know who are in the east side of the North Dakota state that there's a wide variation of climates, and that I will be talking about a little bit. And the crop choices are pretty interesting compared to Montana. So I will give a brief introduction. What is organic? What kind of problem challenges we have? And that leads to what kind of research is needed for this region, and what some of the projects we are doing, why we are doing, what is my goal going forward in long term. So with that, I put a definition of sustainable crop production system, and I put organic on the top because if you leave organic there or not, the definition doesn't change as much. So all organic, well, how you say that? All sustainable is organic, but not all. Yeah, all organic is sustainable, but not all sustainable is organic. So this is an integrated system of production practices that protect the environment and the aid and expand natural resource, and also it's improve food security, economic well-being, and agriculture productivity of land and water. So if we look into the crop production system, so there's main component of that system. If you are a farmer, your number one concern is risk management. All we do at the farms when we grow crops, whether we're choosing which crop to grow, which varieties to grow, which rotation we do, if we grow cover crops, not cover crops, all the decisions, production decisions we make, they are how to mitigate those risks. So we want to reduce the risk, and that's also address the questions of the weather, the environment. The environment changes year to year. In the last few years, the weather pattern has changed. Snow is not happening when it needs to happen. Moisture is not coming when we expect or what we want. So weather is very erratic. So how we manage our farm or the crops, that we address some of the or minimize some of the weather impact. And we can grow our crops with more stability and sustainability. So we have some expectation when we're putting a crop. We have an expectation. We have input cost and all that. So we want to at least have some economically viable that we can, the farmer can live on that, raise family, and pay off all the loans for the inputs, and then depreciation what happened with the equipment and everything that can address that. So just a little history. When we talk organic agriculture, if you look at the history of agriculture, history of managing our land, it just tillage is one main important component. And for organic, it's still true. We still rely on the tillage for our weed control, to manage residue if we have cover crops or after crop harvest, and also the seed preparation. But then it's have some consequences of that, like erosion problem, soil moisture loss, sustainability, especially if you have to plow it before or till before planting, then you will be losing some of that moisture. So that's, critical decisions, when to till or not till. And for the organic farmer, the weed are one of the, major issue. And to manage that, we need to till. So as I was talking about, if you look at the map, North Dakota map, here's the Carrington Research Center. University has really research facilities distributed all along around the states that where we collaborate extensively. And then if you look at this Red River Valley, where is this sugar beet and all soybean and all high value crops are grown, then in the prairie areas, and if you get into the dry land or bad land, then there's your wheat or other small grain crops are growing. And all this transition happened just based on the moisture, how much moisture is. So our cropping system is governed by how much moisture we have in the ground and which crop we can grow with that moisture. I just put this list, organic production crops that are important. And so these are the crops and how many farms are growing that particular crop, total hectares of the land is in there, the total value in millions, and the leading states. So if these highlighted or this orange color, rye, buckwheat, and flaxseed, you can see the North Dakota is really doing well, and buckwheat is an important crop, and small grains also, oat, wheat, all important crops for the peas. So those are all important crops for the farmer here. Also, not very many places, but I think we have this specialty grain like emmer and spelt. We grow quite a bit of that here. Not very many states grow that crops. So those are specialty and important crops that I'm trying to expand a little bit more into that. So as I was talking, this is the survey that is done with you, at U.S. farmlands, looking at what are the major challenges for the farmers. If you look at the top, the yield, and then the weeds is really up there, managing climatic effects or pest problems, abiotic stresses. So if I put this based on that survey and some of the input from the farmers in North Dakota and some of my experience, I put some of the main challenges or the areas that the organic research I needed to focus on. One is the yield gap and productivity. So if you're an organic farmer, the yields are lower than the conventional farmers. However, that is compensated with a price difference. So even though your yield is less, but your premium for the crop is higher. Organic seed availability is another challenge. There are a lot of times the farmer don't get the productive varieties, high yielding varieties, seed available. So they have to rely on whatever seed is available locally, then they get that seed. Tillage is a challenge, weed management, nutrient management, soil fertility issues. You have to have a proper rotation system to keep your fertility up, and then environmental variation. And the non-production challenges, market access and consumer prices. This is, I think, one of the major challenges, like finding the market for your grain. So usually you have to find the market first. You have to have a buyer before you grow a crop in a lot of cases. And certification and regulatory challenge, that is also a very big issue. A lot of people struggle. I just completed my first certification. I started that process 7-8 months ago, so it has taken that long. So by the time we're done, I'm ready for the next cycle in about another 6-7 months. But I think once you certified, then the following certification is just a recertification process is much easier. And the labor access and the cost, knowledge and education gap, and economic viability. So these are the major challenges. And then when I look at what the research need to do that will be benefited to the farmers in this area. So these are the areas that I looked at. So my goal is to conduct original field-based organic cropping system research and deliver timely science-based information that support practical, informed decision-making by producer in the Northern Great Plain. So what we generate these informations to disseminate we have annual reports and other methods of dissemination, field days, so we can share our information with the farmers. And the major challenges or major areas of my research is variety evaluation. So this year I started more close collaboration with the breeders. So any new varieties they are developing, the advanced line, I want to have that in my program so we know which varieties are coming, which new traits are coming, so we can use that. Rotation, cover crops, weed management. So most of the issues that are faced by the challenges by the organic farmer that are built into the research. And if you look at the main areas, is a crop diversity, which is rotation and all that, and precision ag, new technologies coming. We want to incorporate that in our program, in our research, how to manage resource and the soil health, and climate resilient crops and the varieties. So this year, I put this in the map. The reason I put this map here is like you can see, we have these 100 by 400 long strips. So there's a strip, then we have a 25, 30-foot gap in between where we can turn for planting small plot drills. And then, so we have these 3 strips in one of the field and the crops we grow. So we keep track record of what we are growing each year. So we can rotate these crops, a grass crop or non-legume crops followed by usually a legume crop, a different type, maybe each year or following year. So this year we have this setup, and all these small grains, they may go either after dry bean or some go dry peas. So this year we have about all these crops we grow that we have oat varieties. So these are the list of the varieties I put it here that we grow with collaboration with the breeders. And so we can keep in the loop what is coming into the breeding programs, and which varieties are performing really good, and then how to have those varieties available to the farmers. I was attending Albert Lee has a meeting this morning. I was listening to their meeting and we need to talk with those seed producer or seed distributions and marketing groups to figure it out, like if we find certain varieties for certain areas, and if the farmer want that varieties, what the process, and if they can pick up those varieties, and especially if we have the information, then those information are available, and then we can try some of those varieties. The research projects that what I'm working on, corn pea intercropping, and then wheat legume intercropping. These 2 trials, corn is with the corn councils, and wheat legume intercropping studies is with the North Dakota Wheat Council. And the reason we want to do is that to address some of the nitrogen efficiencies, and nitrogen transfer usually occur. So if they are growing side by side, these crops, so their roots get tangled, and then the idea is the non-legume crop can steal or use the excess nitrogen that is either leaked through the roots, and some of those, and then the macronutrients also can grow on there. So the soil overall become healthy, and some of the nutrients become available, like phosphorus. And then it can solve some of the nitrogen, use efficiencies issue. May reduce the synthetic nitrogen application. And for the organic farmer, this is the only source that sometimes we can replenish the nitrogen that is used. There are other manure and other amendments are available that the farmers use, and we can use in that. So this is just some of the plans that we did. I'm going to skip it here, but one other project we started this year is expanding my winter crop evaluation nurseries. So I have a funding with the canola Council and also Northern Pulse Grower Association, where I'm looking at planting different varieties at different times, starting in end of August through middle of October, 4 planting times and 4 varieties, and seeing that what is the planting time, what planting time is good if you want to grow these crops, because over winter are really harsh and then we get the winter kill. So we want to find some option, because we have very limited options when it comes to the winter crops. And I also working with a group that have a pea breeding nurseries and then rye breeding nurseries that I have about 100 lines for rye this year, about 36 lines of pea lines that I am testing. So I have quite a bit of winter crops this year, and a vetch nursery I planted, and also expanding into perennial crops. So I have few varieties of Crenza, that's a perennial, blue flax, Silphium. So we are looking into that, how they help the soil improvement compared to the annual cropping system. So this is some of the initiative that we started this year. It may take few years for these perennial crops to establish, but I'm really excited about that going forward to see how they facilitate, especially during the transition times. We rely on alfalfa and some other crops during the transition, but if we have some mixture of these grasses with alfalfa and other, it may open up some more opportunities for the farmers. This one project I just want to briefly discuss is strategies for sustainable wheat-free soybeans. This is the project with the soybean consult, where we are looking at the soybean planting time, row spacing, and plant type or plant architecture. So there's plant, they're like a bushy type, they grow more laterally, and then there's some varieties that go more erect. Even though soybean is a bush and there's a row crop, they grow at a 30-foot row spacing. So we find some varieties that with the Proseed company that have different growth habits like bushy, and so we included that. So it will determine the competitive ability of the soybean. So this is the plot this year I have. So the field I put this trial has about 138 wheat plants per square foot. That translates into 4 million seed of weeds in that particular field. And pig wheat and foxtail, green foxtail was very dominant species this year in our field. A little bit of lamb's quarter and kosher was also there. And so we have 2 row spacing, 7 and 14 inches row spacing, erect and bushy growth habit, and then we have early and late planting. So we planted 30th of May and then 19th of June for early and late planting, and then we have a four check plots where we compare with these treatment. So here just the timeline. Usually we plant by the end of May or sometime in June, and then we harvest about September or sometime October. I harvest is first week of November because of the little wet condition. So these are the 7 rows. These are the 14 rows, 7 rows, and 30 rows plot usually. I just only planted these 2, not this. And these are the actual plot. So this is 7 row plots here, 14-inch row plot here, and these are with the weeds, so no control. And then this is a control plot with 14-inch row spacing where no weeds were there. And so just this data I want to show a little bit that the stand. So here we target the soybean about 220,000 plant, that which is standard population that we grow in Carrington and the area. But we have early wet weather conditions, so that brings some compaction, and our emergence wasn't that great. So we only range from 133,000 plants to 140,000 plants, and the check plots has 159,000. And because there was no weed pressure as much compared to the treatment plots, and and there were no differences in the population. So this is the statistics done. So early versus late, or between the two varieties or two row spacings, the population was pretty comparable. So most of the results we're going to see any yield difference or something is not because the population was different. So yes, the population was decreased, but it was decreased, across all treatments. And this is the canopy cover when the canopy closes, like before, just at the flowering time or just before flowering, we went and looked at the canopy cover. So the early versus late, there's no difference. The canopy cover was just a little bit difference, and the varieties, there were no differences. So if you look at that early versus late, there was a significant, but 14 and 7-inch row spacing, the canopy cover was pretty big difference. I was surprised to see that 14-inch row spacing has much more canopy cover versus 7-inch row spacing. And I think one of the reasons this difference we saw is that there's more space for the plant to grow. So the plant was not constrained with there was no competition for the plants to grow. So in the narrow row spacing, they may be getting a little bit taller and trying to grow faster to get the light, and with the weeds and all those, that may reduce the canopy cover compared to the wider row. And this is actually by early plants and late planting. And so there's about 2-week difference, 2.5-week difference in maturity. And you can see the edge of the plots where no crop was there, the weeds were just tremendous in these plots. This is the yield, and I was surprised, and I was really I'm excited about these results. I mean, this research actually showing some potential is with these cultural practices in the absence of chemical herbicide control under organic conditions that we cannot use. The early planting has less yield compared to late planting. So if you can plant a little late, your yield, you get the yield boost, at least for this year. And this is our bush type plant, which is 3042. This is a bushy type plant. It has a little better yield. It's not significant, but at least numerically it is a little bit higher. But 7 inches and 14-inch row spacing give you much better yield. So even though we may think growing at wider row spacing may have more weeds, but the yields also, it gives the plants to grow, express itself, and then have a good yield. Compared to the check, which is about 31 bushels, 31 bushels per acre. If you look at this yield, I think in the area we are in, 65 to 70 bushels is the yield potential we get from these varieties in the past. So our yield was about half of what we usually get. That was including the check. So it has, maybe just the environment is like that this year. Our stand was not that great this year. So some of those, but our treatment was like suffered with the same kind of stress. So these comparison is valid based on that economic an analysis and thing. And this is the plot really at maturity. So I'm really excited. This is just the first year study. So what we concluded from this, that soybean yield and wheat biomass affect by planting date, and also row spacing. Cultivar has just some little effect, and it may be at least for this year. So we want to see if it hold up for next year. So across treatment, the combination of late planting and 14-inch row spacing, we are seeing that has advantage. So this is 1-year data. We like to continue this study, and we submitted this grant again with the soybean, and I'm really excited that they should fund that, and we can take this research forward. With that, thank you very much, and if you have any question.
Kasim, do you know in North Dakota um, which organic crop covers the most acreage?
I don't exactly know, but if I look at this crops, the one I table I show, look here. Okay. So you look at that area harvested for rye. It seems like that among some of these crops, rye is pretty much a lot of acres is covered, I think, and buckwheat is also pretty flax. So these crops are, I think, oats has pretty good acreage too, but per se, exactly how much which crop has the most acreage, I probably have to go and double check that. That's a good question. You caught me. You know, Jeff, like in your experiences, that what crop most of the farmers grow?
No, I don't particularly know. It looks like on this chart, though, the rye, buckwheat, and flaxseed are
Yeah.
fairly
Yeah, these three
fairly
crops are
similar.
the top. Yeah.
Mhm,
But I think, and they are in most of the, like buckwheat is very, very common.
mhm,
Rye too, and then oat is right up there, and spring wheat too. I think these are the
mhm.
major crops.
Kasim, are there opportunities for farmers to collaborate with your research? Do you ever need farmers to grow out seed stocks or do on-farm research?
Yeah, so this is actually for me really, really important. The NPSAS, we have a farmer breeding groups that I am a little bit involved with that, and Steve Zwinger have done some work with that. So there's an opportunity that we grow certain crops with the cover crop network. There are farmers, we are collaborating some farmers who are growing different cover crops through the, I think the group is in North Carolina, but this is a project through Cornell that I am part of, that where I'm have the pea and the other crops that vetch and pea and canola I am working with. So whenever we write the grants, especially the Sierra programs that Glenn has worked to, all their research is we have to have some collaboration with the farmers. And I'm really looking forward, going forward, I would like to have the farmers collaborations. And in some cases, I think the farmers also like to look at different aspects, like if they come up with the challenges or something. I know there's one farmer, he become um, regenerative ag certified and growing Krenza and certain other new crops they're trying. So if I have farmers, we will be reaching out some of the farmers, I think, through NPSAS and uh, through FARRMS, um, and the local extension programs. I think Jeff Stagler and then Jeff Gale, and I know other extension people that we can work closely to reach out to the farmers, because when we test all these varieties and um, we would like to have grown on the farmer's field and see how they really perform there. So that's really absolutely we are looking forward to collaborate with farmers.
And we have Jeff Gale from North Dakota SARE. And Jeff's going to talk about the Farmer Rancher Grant, which happens to be the same grant that Glenn was talking about in the first part of tonight's webinar. So welcome, Jeff.
Okay, thank you very much for having me, Stephanie, and hello to everybody who's part of this call tonight. I'm the Extension Agent for Agriculture and Natural Resources in Foster County, which is Carrington, and I'm also one of two co-coordinators for SARE in the state of North Dakota. Carl Hoppe, Livestock Specialist at the Carrington REC, is the other co-coordinator, and I'll give his contact information at the end of this session. Over the next 15 minutes, what I'd like to do is provide a brief overview or introduction to the SARE program and talk about some of the print and video resources that SARE has produced. But most of our time, as Stephanie said, we'll be discussing SARE's farmer and rancher grant program and how you might use it to conduct on-farm research trials. So first of all, what is SARE? SARE is the Sustainable Agriculture Research and Education Program. And it's a USDA funded program that's been supporting sustainable agriculture in the US for more than 35 years. And SARE, if you read through the materials that SARE's produced, books and bulletins, and through the research studies, grant projects that have been done, you can see that SARE really has a very diverse portfolio, ranging from cover crops and soil health to high tunnels to pollinators to urban agriculture. When I think about SARE, I'm reminded of a time when I was at a field day, and I introduced myself to someone standing nearby and introduced my background in soil science. And he turned to me and he said, "So, are you a strict no-till man?" And well, I was kind of caught off guard, and I thought about it for a second, and I said, "Well, no, not really. I think there is a time and place when tillage is appropriate." But then I continued on, and I said, "But I'm really more concerned that we're growing the right crop in the right place at the right time." And later I was reflecting on this conversation, and these were things I don't think I'd ever verbalized until I had until I met this man and was asked that question. And what I learned from it is that conversation is really key to helping us kind of come to conclusions about what we really think is important, how conversation can help us think through and come to our conclusions. And what I like about SARE is that I think it's a place where conversations can occur. And we can further our understanding and ideas in relation to sustainable agriculture production. So SARE is a decentralized grassroots grant program, and the mission statement can be stated in several different ways, but one way is just to promote research and education on sustainable agricultural practices to ensure the economic viability of American agriculture. And this map shows that SARE, we talked about it being decentralized. So SARE is divided into 4 regions. And North Dakota is one of 12 states the gold colored area there, which is referred to as North Central SARE. And each of these regions has its own administrative council, and each region makes its own funding decisions and sets its own priorities about what they think are the most important research topics that need to be addressed. So one aspect of SARE is its outreach program, and they have a whole library of practical how-to books, bulletins, and fact sheets. And I've just put the covers of 4 of the books up here. One is on organic transition. That's kind of a business planner for those who are preparing to enter and begin organic production. Another one, very popular book, is Managing Weeds on Your Farm or Building Better Soils and Cover Crops. And a little bit different slant. I mentioned the diversity of SARE. This is a farmer's guide to business structures. And I find that a fair number of our organic farms, they kind of like to branch out and diversify. Maybe they like to do some agritourism. And if that sort of business is going to be part of their business model, that well, they might want to learn more about what kind of business structure they set up. And Carl Hoppe and I are actually getting ready to do a 4-part meeting. It'll be a day-long training with 2 webinars in February and early March. Addressing these different business structures as well as farm labor issues. So keep your eyes and ears open for information about that. So, one aspect of SARE is the outreach program. But I was really asked tonight to speak and focus about SARE grants. And there are 6 different types of grants that are available. The first type of grant program is for research and education. That's really aimed at our university-based researchers who are exploring sustainable food and fiber systems. Quite similar to that are the graduate student grants. These are smaller scope, something that can be completed in a 1 to 2 year study. Professional development grants, that's for training agriculture educators like FFA advisors or extension agents or other ag professionals in the topic of sustainable ag. Youth educator grants, those would be for projects where an adult is teaching young people about sustainable ag practices. And the definition of a youth educator is fairly broad. It could be a 4-H club leader. It could be a homeschool family. So don't rule yourself out just because you're not a high school teacher. Then there's the Farmer Rancher Grant. That's for farmers or ranchers who are interested in doing on-farm research, demonstration, or education projects. And partnership grant is also very similar, but it usually involves someone like an extension agent or maybe an NRCS district conservationist. They might be the kind of ringleader who works with several other farmers to organize a group project. So specifically, the Farmer and Rancher Grant is going to be the focus now. And this is a grant that helps farmers and ranchers explore innovative ideas and share what they're learning with peers. And innovative ideas can be an entirely new idea that's never been done before, or it could be something that you've heard about that's done in another place, and you're wondering if it can be done in your region or in your part of the state or in your community. Funding for, if you're one farmer applying for this project, the funding limit is up to $15,000. If you're two or more farmers working together, then you can get funding up to $30,000. And again, these grants are open to farmers or ranchers in our north central region, including North Dakota, but 11 other states as well. Well, the bad news is the deadline for this grant was today at 4 o'clock. So this grant program is now closed for the year, but it'll open up again next fall. And in the meantime, you can start doing your thinking and preparations and be ready for when the call to proposals goes out. If you look on the SARE website, you'll find calls for proposals, and that will give you all kinds of tips for creating a strong proposal. They'll give you information about, well, what are the criteria for how that proposal will be evaluated, and there'll be other examples to help guide your writing. But I want to speak now about kind of two main aspects that should be kept in mind when writing a farmer and rancher grant. And the first is it sustainable? SARE defines sustainability in three areas. One, is it environmentally sound? Is it good for the environment? Is it economically viable, or is it profitable? And is it good for the farmer, rancher, or the community? So that's the definition. That's the definition of sustainability. So any successful grant application is going to need to meet these three criteria. But the other criteria is there really needs to be something in the grant that talks about how what you learn in this project is going to be shared with others. So it needs to have an outreach. So you're going to benefit by doing this study, and hopefully you're going to find a profitable and a good means of producing whatever it is you want to produce. But they don't want the information to stop there. They want you to demonstrate and clearly state how you're going to share that knowledge with others. And that's key to a successful grant application. So I pulled off a couple of examples. Earlier in the talk, Stephanie and Glenn introduced us to the SARE database where you can do searches. And I used that method and identified a couple of studies that were done in North Dakota and were funded by the SARE Farmer and Rancher Grant Program. So one of them was done in the eastern part of our state, and the title of the project was Strip Till Corn in Established Rotational Organic Alfalfa. And the goal was to evaluate wide row strip till crop production in perennial alfalfa over 2 growing seasons. And they measured the yield and they monitored soil properties. So you can see in this photograph, there's alfalfa growing in the space between these corn rows. And the researcher, or the farmer, he developed a machine to keep this alfalfa mowed down to a relatively low height, and then he measured corn yield and soil properties. So that was the purpose of the study, which is what was the yield in this, and how did soil properties change? But then he had to have a clear means of outreach. What was he going to do with the results that he gained? And by the conclusion of the project, he'd had 50 consultations with men or women who called him up and talked to him about his project. He'd done 10 on-farm demonstrations, gave 5 tours, And he presented at the Northern Plains Sustainable Agriculture Society meeting and recorded that presentation, and it's now available on the SARE website. So this was how he took his results and made them public and of value to others. Now, this was kind of a research-based farmer and rancher grant. But another slant is to take on a demonstration-based research grant. And this one used a year-round dome. They had a dome, and they used it to provide produce to a preschool food program and to teach young children about sustainable agriculture and healthy food choices. And their goal was really to demonstrate the ability to grow produce year-round in this dome and to provide fresh produce to the school from May through December. So that was the purpose. And then when they got or it wasn't really the results, again, it's a demonstration study. So what they did was they hosted 12 school field trips so they could show the facility and how it was being used. They hosted 2 people who were interested in building their own dome. They had a field day and 100 guests attended. They had a newsletter article. They had an interview with Ag Week about their dome and their project. And they produced this online video, which they posted on Facebook. So this is how they demonstrated the results of their project. So again, in very simple terms, I think the key to a successful SARE grant is, 1, meeting the definition of sustainability and being sure to include that outreach component. How are you going to take these results and make it known to others? I got a call a couple of weeks ago by someone who was interested in applying for a farmer and rancher grant. And as we were talking, one of the questions they asked me is, who's going to decide whether or not this grant or my application is funded? I think they were a little intimidated that it would be an academic review group made up of professors, and I think they found that pretty intimidating. But for these farmer and rancher grants, almost all the reviewers are peers. They are farmers and ranchers from the states in the north central region. So you're really writing the grant to be read by your peers, by other farmers and ranchers. I would say in 2024, there were 150 proposals that were submitted for the Farmer Rancher Grant in our region. And of those, 43 of the projects were funded. So there was about a 30% success rate. So it's a bit of a challenge, but there's definitely the possibility of being successful. Certainly, North Dakota farmers have received these grants in the past, and we'd really encourage farmers and ranchers to consider applying for these grants in the future. I've got a QR code, 2 QR codes here, and then we'll also put the links in the chat box. One is just the general description of the grant programs in the North Central SARE region. And the other is a workshop that's coming up in middle of January, January 15th in Fargo. There's going to be very focused grant writing workshop, which is specifically how to write a SARE farmer rancher grant. This is a SARE workshop. It's going to be interactive. It's about an hour and a half long, and it will be an opportunity to think through your ideas, to try to kind of hone in on fundable trial and sketch out a research question and then gain confidence in crafting a SARE grant proposal. So if you use this QR code or the link, what's going to come up is information about a conference that the University of Minnesota and North Dakota State University are going to do about soils on January 14th and 15th. But if you scroll down to the bottom of the page, this grant writing workshop is listed there. And it's you don't need to attend the bigger conference. This is a free workshop, and you can come only to that session if that's all you're interested in. I'll just put up our contact information. As I mentioned, Carl Hoppe is the other co-coordinator. He's a livestock specialist at the Carrington REC. There's his phone number and email address, and you're always welcome to contact one of us if you have any questions. Okay. So I will stop there. And I'm available for any questions that somebody might have. And thank you, Stephanie, for sending those links.
So Jeff, just a quick question. If you have a farmer into a different region, so north central region, or so if the other farmer is Montana and you are in North Dakota, you are adjacent state, you want to collaborate on something, is there a way they can collaborate, or is pretty region specific?
I would say, you know, there may be some overlap in the or commonalities in the grant programs, but I think you're probably going to have to decide where your base is, where you're really going to do the study, and then you would need to apply through that grant program that's distinct for that region.
So can they do the same grant and put it in there because they are close by, let's see, North Dakota, Montana, so they want to do a two farmer research,
Right.
And then so each one can submit the same grant to their respective and work together in a way, collaborate together, or it will be tricky.
To be honest, Kasim, that sounds like a tricky situation to me. I think I would refer them to the grant administrators in their region and ask them specifically. That sounds pretty unusual situation, so I wouldn't want to venture a guess on what they do in that kind of cross-border situation.
Yeah. I think for the research and education, what they say is like if you are the main PI, you can collaborate across different region with some contract kind of contract service or something like that. I think one time
Uh-huh.
but yeah, and you're right. I mean, because of the region, it's like a little tricky sometimes.
Hmm.
Thank you.
Sure.
Joanna, did you have a question?
I I kind of was wondering about the collaboration with other farmers. Do people typically already have somebody in mind, or do people ever submit a grant and say, it'd be great if another person could join and then find someone after the fact? I mean, I don't know how planned out a collaboration has to be, or if you can kind of look for people if you have an idea. Or maybe you have a network to help, find other people. I'm not sure.
Yeah, there may be a way, to find, um, whether I can think of different ways you could find a collaborator, but I think when you submit the grant, it should be very grant application. There's a pretty clear idea of who's going to work on this. And certainly before I became a coordinator, I was working on as the to lead several other farmers on this, and they all had to sign off on papers saying they wanted to be part of this study that we were applying a grant for. So I don't think there's really, I have an idea. Does anyone else want to join me? Probably you have to find those collaborators on your own before writing and submitting the grant.
The good news is you have a year to find them.
Yeah. And I mean, Joanna, you're well connected and you attend meetings where you're likely to meet others who have similar interests to you and identify your collaborators that way. Glenn, if you have other information or experiences, don't hesitate to chime in.
My first SARE grant was a collaboration with another farmer. So I guess but we knew each other. We had similar interests, and that's what led to that. But networking at conferences does help, or even field days that NDSU hosts. So you have to kind of find that circle of people with similar interests. So collaboration can be good if you have the same goals and same at least resources to do the work. I mean, to manually do the work, physically do the work. But you could also partner to realize that, okay, I can good at this, you're good at that. You can partner that way too.
I thought it was interesting too, and I know I've heard other Sarah presentations in the past, but I had maybe forgotten about the part where you can do more of like a demonstration. That's pretty interesting. Um, is is there a difference in the application groups if you're doing more of a research based versus a demo based, or do they just get a mix of all of those types?
You know, Joanna, I'd have to do a little bit of digging or research. So certainly it's still called a farmer rancher grant, but I think you would probably, I'm, I'm fairly certain that it would be the same form, but there would be a box that you would check. You know, is this more research oriented or is this more demonstration oriented? And then it would become even more clear as you describe what you're going to do and how you're going to do your
Hmm.
outreach. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, and you don't need to find an answer. It was just a curiosity, like
Hmm.
if you're getting a lot of both types
Hmm.
or how that looks. So,
And my impression, I've been in this role for a couple of years, but my impression is this distinction between the research and the outreach. Glenn, I don't know what your feeling is, but I feel like this is kind of something that's a more recent distinction. I know when I was doing the grant search, it was very clearly stated last year, this is a research-oriented grant, or this is a demonstration-oriented grant. I didn't see that on some of the ones going back, several years previously. Maybe it was always there and they just didn't have a way to write it so clearly, but now it's very clearly demarcated on
hmm
the reports.
I guess the reason I asked is because I've been doing quite a bit of work in a kind of a reimagining a local food system here in Cheyenne, and um, have a lot of interesting data and things that I've just by collecting myself, and it wasn't necessarily collected in a rigorous way where we set up some sort of hypothesis or a thesis, but at the same time, I think I've learned a lot of really valuable stuff that
Mhm.
should be shared somehow, and then continuing to learn every year about like how this works with our farm stand and soon to be store and all of that. So um, that's why I guess I asked the question.
Sure.
Mhm. Jeff,
One more thing, Stephanie, before you go on. I did, I want to say that what the presentation I gave is an abbreviated version of a talk by Liz Brownlee, who's the Farmer and Ranch grants coordinator for our region. And she has a YouTube video that's a little over an hour long, which goes into much more detail about the presentation. So that would be a good video if you're ready for more information. And that's posted there in the chat box. So thanks to Liz for loaning me her PowerPoint.
Do you have time for one more question, Stephanie?
Yes.
Okay. Does anybody ever do, or do you know of, and I can probably go look on the database too, but do you know of anyone trying to do like a market demonstration, like to show that a crop is marketable or a supply chain works or anything like that?
Off the top of my head, no, but it would be worth doing a search of the database and see what comes up.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, that also raises a question for me that you might be able to answer, Jeff. You didn't really talk much about the partnership grants,
Mhm.
but I'm wondering if that also might fit with that. And I know that those are where a farmer partners with an organization like FARRMS or
Right.
Extension,
Mhm.
but I don't know what, the focus, if those are also, the same as farmer rancher, but partnership, or if there's a slightly, if a market research grant would fit with that better.
What do you mean by market research? Can you explain that more?
I was just trying to put a name to what Joanna was
Mhm.
describing.
Mhm.
Testing. Uh, Joanna, what are you testing?
Yeah, I'm thinking about a few different things that we're trying out and trying to sort of develop a hopefully a replicable model for getting some of these local products to market.
Mhm.
So it's something that I'm going to try, but in the process we'll be, collecting real world, did it work or not, sort of
Mhm.
data. Um, and
You
maybe.
know, Joanna, I think SARE is very diverse in the kinds of projects they're willing to consider and the kinds of projects they fund. I would say what you just need to show is how is this information that you're gathering or this research that you're trying to demonstrate, how's it good for fa- farmer profit? How's
Hmm.
it good for the environment? How's it good for communities? And
Hmm.
if you can demonstrate that, then I think it's a viable SARE research project.
Okay, yeah, that's helpful to recenter on that context. Thanks.
Hmm. And you know what you're describing, it certainly, uh, I think it could be. It's good for
Hmm.
the producer, and if it's getting food to people, healthy food to people, it's good for the community. Um, so yeah, I would think of it as in terms of that three-legged stool. And if that works, then I think it will get consideration.
Just give a little information is that uh, so any food related, for example, byproducts like a protein or a new way of new pasta or any, you know, NDSU has that crop institute that you can collaborate and you can submit the funding for that. Um, like when initially we were looking at camelina, let's say in Montana, you have to find a company maybe sometime who are interested in preparing that and then do a test market or through the samples and thing, and those things can be funded too. But if you have like a byproduct for a or a product from a crop, crop institute could be a good place also they can collaborate with, and then you can submit funding. I know we at the research center we have a lupins crop that is a new crop, and they are collaborating and with some miller and see if that which company can buy that and convert the product. And so there's a lot of work. even with the market testing and things, but there are companies who help and facilitate that. So, I mean, I don't know if it can help you with your
Well,
product or not, but
it could certainly for someone on the call. I think for me, it's not so much a new product. It's just looking at the local food system and how do we get more of our vegetables, more of our cut flowers, more of our beef, more of our pork, eggs, all that locally.
okay,
So it's more of a supply chain thought
yeah,
than actual product development thought.
yeah.
I'm gonna email you after this, Joanna, about
Sure.
a food hub network project that we're working on. So I'll share more on them. So thank you, everybody. We will share out all of the resources and links that were shared tonight in a follow-up email. There was a lot of great information. I also added another webinar recording to the chat. FARRMS had a webinar about 5 years ago in November of 2020 on the Farmer Rancher Grant, where we heard from 3 farmers talking about their experiences writing the Farmer Rancher Grant and just doing their projects and disseminating their results. And so the link to the recording for that is in the chat. We also ask that you would please take our evaluation survey for this webinar. As I said, these are funded by the OCIA TOPP program, and we need to report to them the results of our webinars. So thank you. Taking those surveys helps us in that reporting. So you can find FARRMS at farrms.org, and we encourage you to please stay in touch. And we hope you'll join us next week for the second in this series. And I'm trying to find here we go. So here's how you can connect with us. Sign up for our newsletter, and we hope you'll come back next week on the 11th, same time, same place. There is information to register on our website. And next week we will be hearing from a farmer panel, including Joanna, talking about your experiences with transitioning to certified organic and the transition plan. We will also get to meet some folks from the Organic Farming Research Foundation, which was mentioned tonight, and from the National Center for Appropriate Technology. And they'll be sharing some resources for your organic transition process. And Shelby has shared details on session 2 in the chat. So thank you all for joining us. We'll wrap up here, and we hope the rest of your evening is wonderful. See you next week.
Thank you, Stephanie. Good to meet all of you.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Have a good night.